Hey, we're live. I don't know if you could hear a fun thing, but welcome back to another episode of Caps Off by the Game Day. I have no idea if you could hear us right now.
They hear us? We're good. Oh, they can hear us.
They can
They
hear us.
can
All
officially hear us.
right.
You know what that means?
That
It's Puka Nakua season.
Puka Nakua season. Yeah.
Yeah. Because audio, Puka.
Yeah. I ordered us Puka shells for the record.
Yeah?
Yeah, I did.
It's a big week. You actually talked about him last week as one of the guys you should target on the waiver wire, and he balled out this past week.
It's almost like you should listen to this podcast.
Potentially.
Maybe not.
But you also told me to drop.
Who?
Well, you told me to pick up
Luke.
Salvan Ahmed.
No.
You know who I dropped? You know who I dropped for Salvan Ahmed?
Who?
Josh Kelly, who had 19 points.
Yeah, that's a bad one. But you needed to play someone this week.
Yeah, I did. I could have played Josh Kelly.
Yeah, Josh Kelly's now add him back. He's going to be on the waiver wire.
Get him back.
But before we jump into it, remember to go to thegameday.com for any waiver wire additions, fantasy articles, all the best advice. So be sure to do that. You could also go to gameday.com/promotions for any betting offers if you're into that type of stuff. Oh, yeah. But yeah, today we're going to be doing this every Tuesday, Thursday. We've been saying this. Obviously, we had yesterday's episode, which we're recapping the Sunday slate, which was an insane day. But now we got fantasy to talk about. We got a lot of questions being asked. We got waiver wires to deal with. We got a Jets offense that now looks like is not a formidable type of team that you want to play with. So
to say the least.
Yeah, man. What were your biggest takeaways from week one in terms of fantasy?
I mean, since we're coming off that Monday night game,
let's start with the Jets.
Everything changes.
Yeah.
Because you have Breece Hall, who's actually, I think, is okay. That's fine. He's going to get his carries. But Garrett Wilson right now, I know he had that insane catch, but are we going to rely on that every single week?
Not at all.
His ceiling just goes down tremendously without Aaron Rodgers. You go from Aaron Rodgers to Zach Wilson. You get Garrett Wilson from last year, which was still viable, but it's not a lot of people thought he was going to take that Justin Jefferson leap. Can he do it without Aaron Rodgers? No. I don't think so. And honestly, I don't know who else you had in that offense, like Lazard maybe as like a flex, potentially maybe I don't know. The offense as a whole, the points are going to go down. The ceiling for everybody goes down except Breece Hall, maybe Breece Hall a little bit. Because without the passing, you're going to be able to stop the run more. And I think you're going to see this Jets offense. I know we're not even talking about just football in general. We're talking fantasy. But implications are going to play into this. The Jets are going to shit the bed next week against Dallas, and I don't know who's going to play well.
Hey, shout out Dallas. They had the second most fantasy points out of anyone.
Good segue.
Second most, but I do want to finish up that Jets conversation. I think when you look at that Jets roster, what scares me the most is kind of where you drafted a lot of these guys, right? So Garrett Wilson and really Breece Hall, he might have dropped to that fourth round, but really Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall were those two main guys, right?
Garrett, you're getting at the top of the second.
The top, not even. Some people reach for him late in the first.
Right.
And I've seen in keeper leagues, right? Which is tough because if Garrett Wilson was going to have that Jettis type of, performance, he's a guy you'd probably want to keep if you got him early in that second. But right now, he is not someone that you would even want to waste that keeper on. To me, when I look at Garrett Wilson, I think he's at most a low-end wide receiver one, and I put him more on the wide receiver two spectrum.
I would too. Now
with
Rodgers, I
was Rodgers, he was a high-end wide receiver one.
I was drinking all the Kool-Aid because the Kool-Aid was there to fucking drink. You saw Aaron Rodgers with Devontae Adams, what he did with him, and that's what you were expecting with Garrett Wilson, maybe even better. But now, Zach Wilson, look, the Jets won the game, but you saw what you saw from him last year. Maybe a couple throws were okay. It kind of sucked because we all bought into the Zach Wilson. Maybe not everybody, but we saw him on Hard Knocks. He took the backseat to Rodgers. We thought, okay, he's maturing. He's going to be a little bit better. I don't know, but I think it was too early for him to jump back in. And I saw something funny. Well, maybe getting into fantasy implications now. There's no way anybody's starting Zach Wilson, period, right?
Yep.
Especially against Dallas. But well, fuck it. Regardless, the Jets just look bad. The offense looks bad.
Yeah, I think you bump everyone down on that Jets offense. I think, Dalvin Cook is the scariest one because I think Dalvin Cook is a guy you got in that 7th, 8th round. And now Dalvin Cook might not even be – he might get into the end zone, but he is a RB3 kind of in that flex conversation where he could have been a low-end RB2. Breece looked fantastic last night. But he's also someone that until I see what that offense looks like under Zach Wilson, because you got to keep in mind that whole offense was tailored towards Aaron Rodgers and what he did, right? Even those little signs that he might give to Garrett Wilson, to any of these other players. So I'm definitely worried. If you have any of these Jets players, you're definitely worried. But let's go to the other side of the ball. Josh Allen is a guy that had 4 fucking turnovers, and week in and week out, this dude, it's one thing because you and I were talking about this. Dak Prescott is a guy that gets a lot of shit for his INTs, but at least he's trying to make plays, and it's not necessarily his fault. Right. But then you look at Josh Allen, all 4 of those turnovers All 4 were his fault.
Yeah.
Reckless fucking plays. I said yesterday on Twitter, he's more reckless with the ball than Nick Cannon is with his. And I mean that. Tell me that's not a good line, right?
Dude,
that's going, right?
That took me like a few seconds.
It's a good one, right?
Because Nick Cannon's reckless.
Yeah, he is reckless with his
45
ball.
kids.
Yeah,
with his balls.
With his ball. No, singular ball.
With his ball. Singular ball?
Well, one ball is probably doing the damage.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm looking at Josh Allen's points. 9 points. Well, that outperformed Lamar Jackson. So, yikes, that was my quarterback. Anyways, yes, fantasy-wise, I'm not too worried about Josh, though. I think, we're going to get into this in a regular episode.
Yeah.
Josh, this is a problem for Josh, clearly. And it obviously it impacts, that's the word. It impacts his fantasy performance as well. You don't want to see those kind of turnovers from him. But on a week in, week out basis, Josh is going to get his, and he's going to have his rushing upside, stuff like that. The Bills versus the Jets, that's a tough matchup. We've seen it time and time again. Even last year, the Jets were bad. They were fine with the bad offense, but they weren't good, and they still gave the Bills problems. The Bills are going to outscore most teams. They're going to play very well. So I think Josh is okay. He's the 23rd quarterback right now. He's not going to finish as a 23rd
of course not. He's still that top 5 guy. Also, if you are tuning in on TikTok, make sure to submit some questions. If you have any questions about fantasy,
I love
we'll
questions.
look at them and we'll answer it. Vinny says, hey, Matan, how's it hanging back there? Some people are saying AFC is wide open. The Browns are going to the Super Bowl. Let's not overreact. Except by saying Dolphins winning the division. That's been a confirmation thing. But, let's also one other thing on the Bills that I want to talk about is James Cook. James Cook, you got him really late in that maybe anywhere from 5th to 7th round in fantasy. And he looked like a guy that can be a league winner. He looked quick. And I don't want to say he looked better, because the usage was different. I don't want to say he looked better than Breece Hall, but just the utilization that he had, catching passes out of the backfield, some of the design runs that they had. I mean, James Cook could be an actual league winner. If you have James Cook, you got to be enthralled by where you got him. Obviously, all the preseason hype was on him. My other biggest takeaway from that, Bills, is that Damian Harris didn't do fucking anything. Now, granted, they didn't get into the goal line very often, but Damian Harris was relinquished to, I think, the 3rd running back late in that 4th quarter for Latavius Murray. So if you have James Cook, you should be, thrilled. Stephon Diggs looked, nice. Everything and more. That connection is going to be great.
Bill's offense is going to be okay, man.
Yeah.
They're going to be okay. James Cook is nice. Now, I don't know even why you brought him in the same sentence as Breece Hall, because Breece Hall,
because I thought
Breece Hall averaged 12 yards.
Because I thought Breece looks good, but James Cook is on a better offense without Zach Wilson at the helm. And so with James Cook there, where you got Breece and where you got James Cook were a couple round difference. And that's why I'm saying with James Cook, you can get very similar type of production now that you would have probably got with Breece Hall under a Aaron Rodgers type of regime. Let's also go through some of the biggest performers from yesterday or Sunday, I guess we should say. I mean, let's talk about my guy Tyreek. 44.5 PPR points. I mean, Tyreek is looking like the biggest steal in fantasy this year because you got him in that mid-first. And he's a guy that we know is probably going to get the same amount of targets as Jettis. Now, Jamar Chase had those targets and they didn't convert. But the difference between a Jettis target, a Tyreek target, and a Jamar Chase target is Jamar Chase's go balls. We've talked about that. Jamar Chase is throwing it up.
Plays, though.
It's amazing plays, but it's not scheming him open as much as you might find with a Jettis who's relying on his route running. Mike McDaniel scheming Tyreek Hill open. Tyreek Hill has the best chance out of anyone to finish as the overall wide receiver 1 based off of week 1. I mean, he had a hell of a performance.
I mean, yeah, considering you took him in the middle of the draft, totally. But if you're going to let's say you're drafting after week 1. Mm-hmm. What do you think he goes now? Because Jettis probably still goes 1-1.
I think he goes 2. And it's funny,
he could go 2.
You want to know what's crazy?
That's crazy.
In one of my leagues, someone took Tyreek 2.
Which is good.
Over
move.
Jamar, over CMC.
Go get your guy.
No, I get it.
If it pans out, it pans out. I agree with you, but I also think we can't overreact. And you said this yourself on Sunday. Don't overreact to this Jamar Chase shit. We knew they weren't going to have a good game against the Browns. We called it. We called the Browns winning that game, and they just don't play well in Cleveland against the Browns. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to come back to normal. It's the averages, whatever the quote is. You're the man of quotes.
Law of averages. Regression
law of averages. Sure.
Yep.
That's going to happen, for lack of a better term.
Proof is in the pudding.
Proof's in the pudding. So
another guy that had a big week, he was 11th in PPR points in total, right? We're not just going for wide receivers, is Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne's a guy that was in the doghouse with Bill Belichick last year. Mac Jones was 10th in scoring. He had 25 fantasy points.
Mac played well, man.
He played well. I do hate Mac, but I give credit where credit's due.
Dots, and that's a good defense they put against.
It's a great defense.
Threw a pick six, also not his fault. Could have done a little bit better, but it was a deflected pass. It was a Dak interception. I like to call those. And so, Mac played well. Kendrick Bourne. I mean, if that's going to be his number one guy, did Juju do anything yesterday?
No. He was also third
Sunday?
in targets, I think. So it doesn't. I'm not even looking at it. My point is Kendrick Bourne is a guy who, if he's on the waiver wire, he probably isn't. He was probably like a late round pick, but if he's on the waiver wire, that's
just don't know what the fuck's go with that Patriots offense. We talk about how fucking bad they are, but when you can see a guy getting consistently, he's on our waiver wire here in our league, but you're seeing a guy getting consistently targeted like that. He might be Mac's guy. I don't know. Look. Ranked 5th at receivers after 1 week. So that's in PPR. So that's pretty nice. I mean, they're going to be playing worse defenses than the Eagles too. The Eagles is a good defense.
Yep.
They schemed against the Patriots well. Obviously, they knew what they were going to get, and Bourne still did well.
What's to make of Brandon Ayuk? Now, Brandon Ayuk had 32.9 fantasy points. He went crazy.
Don't expect that again.
I wouldn't expect that, but Brandon Ayuk at a camp, people were saying, looks like a guy willing to take another step. Now, he broke out last year. He had 1,000 yards, and I think was one of the quietest 1,000 yards receiving.
Oh, for sure.
Considering the transition from a Jimmy G to a Brock Purdy. But Brandon Ayuk looks like the number one target in that offense outside of CMC. And I think if you got Brandon Ayuk, I got him once in one of my leagues in like the 7th round or 6th round. I mean, that's a guy that right now, to me, Brandon Ayuk, even though those so many guys, so many mouths to feed, is a low-end wide receiver too. And I think could be a high-end wide receiver too if he replicates something similar, because he had a lot of targets. I don't know what his exact targets were.
He had 8 targets.
He had 8 targets.
And 8 receptions.
8 receptions. Now, granted, it's never going to be like that, right? So let's say he gets 8 targets a game potentially. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll get 5 or 6 receptions.
5 or 6 receptions for like 60 yards, 50 yards. I mean, that's a low-end wide receiver too. And I would take that, because if knowing the upside that comes with that offense, because he can find the end zone at any given moment. Brandon Ayuk is it was a steal in fantasy. He's looking like one of the steals.
What was he going?
I think his ADP was around like the 5th to 6th to 7th round, depending on who you're playing with. Like I said, I got him in the 6th in one of my leagues, and I had to take him. The opportunity was too good. I'm
looking up Debo now. How did Debo do?
I don't think he did that great.
Debo had 14 points, 5 receptions, 55 yards. I mean, we knew it. Ayuk is the best pure receiver on that team. The funny thing is with that offense is that we say, oh, there's too many mouths to feed, all this and that. They played a good defense. Pittsburgh has a good defense, and Mike Tomlin has a scheme against defense. Everybody got theirs, bro.
Yep.
McCaffrey got his. McCaffrey ran for 151. I think it was total 151.
Yep.
He got his. He got his points. He's the top 5 running back right now, scoring wise for sure. Ayuk got his. He's number 2. Debo still got his. That's what I'm surprised about. I mean, it's still 11 points. It's not bad. Obviously, it wasn't the value you probably paid for him, but a lot of people warned you on that. If you went out going super high for Debo, you should have probably seen this coming. But the Niners offense is going to get theirs. They did that against a good Steelers defense. And look, man, that division isn't, after 1 week at least, isn't looking as daunting as we thought it was. Seahawks look bad.
Yep.
The Rams, I don't know. You're still not too worried about them.
You're not worried about Puka.
Puka, I love. But the Rams are going to get theirs, bro. I think if you have any of these guys, you got to start all of them. Yeah. You got to start You're going to start McCaffrey on a week-to-week basis. You're going to start Ayuk on a week-to-week basis. Probably as a wide receiver, too.
Yeah.
Maybe as a flex if your team is really deep. And then Debo, you're going to start him because it's just he's boom.
Brandon Ayuk was on my bench this week.
That's crazy. I feel like you got to start him now, right?
Yes.
Am I wrong?
In a 2-flex league.
I had Brandon in a 2-flex league?
On a 2-flex league, yeah, because I started Zay Flowers over him, who is another guy. But yes, you are starting Brandon Ayuk right now. Let's talk about Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers led the Ravens in targets. I think the biggest thing that we had seen with Zay Flowers is the utilization, that he played all over the field. He's a gadget guy. He was getting targeted all over the field. And it wouldn't shock me also if J.K. Dobbins now being done for the season, which RIP, Zay Flowers gets more not facilitated. What's the word? Where you force feed a touch. No, you force feed a touch. What's the word? You're manufactured touches, right?
Okay,
where right now,
that's good. Manufactured touches,
it's super easy. He's dynamic, yeah. So Zay Flowers is a guy that right now. Zay Flowers looks like the number one guy that's going to win the offensive rookie of the year outside of Bijan.
Oh, really? Yeah, outside of Bijan. Bijan actually, maybe we talk about him a little bit too. Staying on rookies, very efficient today. But Zay, yeah, I think manufactured touches is actually a great word. I mean, you saw them utilizing them everywhere.
Yep.
What do great teams, good coaches, which we know Harbaugh is,
Scheme
and
up
now
their
they
best
got
players.
Todd Monken and stuff. They scheme up the best players and get
Yep.
touches however you got to get them.
Yep.
When you do that in week 1 with your rookie wide receiver that you took in the first round, you know that they know who their best players, they know who their guy is, and they're going to use them for the rest of the season. This is week 1 for a rookie wide receiver.
Yep.
It takes rookie wide receivers some weeks, and for really good wide receivers, a few weeks to really get going because it's tough as a rookie, obviously. And to see Zay Flowers get his touches, no matter how he's going to get them, he was getting them in a screen pass behind the line of scrimmage, ahead of the line of scrimmage. Lamar didn't look great. Lamar had like 6 fantasy points. Talk about a dud. Worse than Josh Allen even. But he was still getting it to Zay Flowers. So I think Zay, man, that's a safe floor as a flex play on a week-to-week basis. I really, really like him.
I agree. I think Zay, according to this stat by Fantasy Points data, Zay Flowers has the 6th best fantasy points per route run. Some other guys
That's
in there,
awesome.
Calvin Ridley, Ayuk, Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave. So Zay Flowers is showing that the efficiency is there, and you could trust him moving forward.
Monken is going to scheme him up, bro.
Yep.
Like, he could play a great defense. Monken is going to scheme him up. And, yeah, I know they play the Texans, whatever.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter because the targets are there. The targets are going to be there regardless because they're going to scheme him up. He'll be fine. I love it.
Yeah, there's before we jump into it, there's some questions on the live right now.
Okay.
Jack said, would you trade Jalen Waddle and possibly running back for Ayuk or Diggs? I wouldn't. Jalen Waddle is a guy that, it was weird. Tyreek Hill had a ton of targets. Jalen Waddle is going to be more than fine. I'd rather have Jalen Waddle over Brandon Ayuk.
Oh, for sure.
Totally.
But it was Ayuk and who?
It was Ayuk or Diggs. Now, obviously, you would take Stephon Diggs, but you're
Diggs.
not. No, it was Brandon Ayuk for Ayuk or Diggs. Now, I don't think you're going to get that ever. But yeah, some Gabe Nolan said, should I be worried and look to trade Jamar Chase after his poor performance? Absolutely not. If anything, a lot of people are probably going to hit you up seeing if you're going to overreact. Don't trade Jamar Chase. If you don't have Jamar Chase, put a feeler out there, see what that owner or that manager, I should say, is feeling about Jamar Chase and see what it's going to take. I don't think you're going to be able to get Jamar just because I think a lot of people are like, hey, it's 1 week. Let's not overreact. The whole offense was bad.
That's a fact.
But
dude, you don't know. The same way you seem to be overreacting. What's his name?
Gabe Nolan.
Gabe, you seem to be overreacting here. Please don't overreact. But the same way you're overreacting, there's going to be other managers that don't have Jamar Chase. There's going to be people like him that are overreacting, and you should try to get Jamar Chase on the low because they're going to think, oh, he's not worth that much. Like, hey, look, that's really – don't be thinking like that. It's 1 week. They're going to bounce back. We knew this was going to happen against the Browns in Cleveland. But put out your feelers. Like, maybe some guys are undervaluing him after 1 week.
Yep. Let's do some more fantasy week 1 overreactions or just reactions of any type. Some guys in there, like AJ Brown only had 14 points. It's fine. Nick Chubb, 16, should have scored a touchdown. A big one for me is Kyren Williams, the running back in LA, the RB2 behind Cam Akers. Heading into the 4th quarter, Kyren Williams was actually leading the Rams in rushes. And obviously that game was kind of a blowout, so Cam Akers took over more so. He wasn't as efficient, and we have seen in a Sean McVay offense, running backs, like whoever the bell cow, for lack of a better term, is, or whoever the guy there is, kind of switches week over week. But Kyren Williams, that was the biggest surprise to me outside of like a Puka Nacua.
Puka you saw coming.
If you listen to our last Thursday episode, yes, I did call Puka Nacua having a breakout. So yeah, I think, Kyren Williams is a big one. Let's talk Bijan also. Bijan Robinson, who had less touches than Tyler Algier. And you spent an 8th pick on this man. And you're telling me your former 1,000-yard rusher is going to be 2nd in rushes?
I'm not mad at it.
I'll be honest, I'm not mad either. And I can tell you why.
Do you want to go ahead?
I can tell you why.
Go ahead.
Because at the end of the day, it's week 1. I want him to ease into it. I don't want,
of course,
a Saquon type workload early on. Now, granted, Saquon, when he was a rookie, went crazy. And I think Bijan still had a fantastic game. He still had that reception. He had 33% target share. 33. That's crazy. Drake London didn't even have a single fucking target. So
Bijan had a 33% target share.
33.
6 targets, 6 receptions.
So
and a touchdown.
I'm actually happy with Bijan not exploding because I think he's going to have explosions, but I am a little confused with Tyler Gill getting the goal line carries and not.
That's a little annoying if you're a Bijan manager, but here's the thing. He scored 20 points. He scored 20 points. That's efficiency. Now, only 10 attempts, 10 rushes, 56 yards, 5.6 yards per clip, bro. That's fucking nice. Like, Christian McCaffrey's rookie year, we knew he had explosiveness. Now, he wasn't even the type of like belt cow, we like to throw that term out there, that Bijan is, because he was a little bit smaller in frame, and we were a little bit worried about him in between the tackles. We know Bijan can do everything. If he got 5.6 on 10 carries, we know he's going to be able, like the Falcons are going to be able to turn that up. It's just a matter of they got a lever right now, and they're just pushing it slowly. But if he got 20 on 10 carries and he had 6 receptions, like, give him 15 and see what he does.
Yep.
They give him 20. They were up. They killed the Panthers. They didn't need to overuse them or nothing like that. They got Algier, who they can use. Algier's nice too, a couple goal line rushes. I think as the season goes on and they get into more battles where they're going to have to utilize their best players, Bijan's probably the best player on their offense. I mean, I know they got Drake London.
No, he is.
But they're going to utilize him more. And the fact that he got 20 points week 1, and we've seen this in the past with teams really easing their running backs in, like Christian McCaffrey, like I said, other guys like that. Derrick Henry barely touched the ball in his first game when he got drafted.
Yeah, I'm not worried.
Bijan 20 in the first game, I think that's huge.
That's
massive. It's only
going
to go up.
The biggest takeaway from Bijan's performance is A, the 33% target share, and B, the 6 receptions. Because if you're being utilized in the passing game and you're able to be, he's going to feast. So you got to be really happy. Some other questions pouring in from the live on TikTok right now. Your thoughts on Josh Jacobs? The one thing I'd say about Josh Jacobs is obviously he was the leading rusher last year, so you can't expect that type of performance again. However, I would say Josh Jacobs for me would be like a buy low type of candidate because he didn't play that well. Jacoby Myers had 2 touchdowns. I expect a Josh McDaniels type of offense to get inside the goal line and give those touches to Josh Jacobs. I'm not panicking on Josh Jacobs at all. I think he's still someone who's a set it and forget it, especially because where you drafted him. So I'm not panicking on Josh Jacobs. 19
carries, 48 yards.
It's not efficient. Disgusting. It's not efficient.
Like 2 yards a carry almost.
But you look at the carries. You look at the attempts.
No, I agree with you. I mean, set it and forget it, especially because value you got him in. Like, you got to play him. But this is my thing with Josh Jacobs last year. And I have him in Dynasty, and I traded him last year midseason, and he ended up having a great year. So I would say it bit me in the ass, but I got Derrick Henry, and I won the championship, whatever. So I was okay. But the offensive line isn't good.
Yeah, but the offensive line didn't change from last year. That's the difference.
You're right. But
at least I don't think it did.
I don't think it did much either. But Derek Carr, like, I just don't know. That offense has always worried me. Like, last year he outperformed all his expectations. Absolutely, he's going to regress because there's no way he matches what he did last year. But the same reason I was worried about him last year, and don't get me wrong, he outperformed his expectations last year. I don't think he's going to outperform his expectations this year. Like, I think he's going to be okay. You should start him. I think he probably finishes as an RB2. I don't know if he's an RB1, which is why I was always worried about him. Did he go in the second round in drafts?
Josh Jacobs?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I guess you got him, but like decent value. That's probably where he should go. That offense just concerns me. The offense sucks.
Yeah, the offense
I just
sucks.
don't like the offense.
I said the same thing last year, and yet he,
exactly.
was the leading rusher.
But he outperformed himself last year. I don't know if he's going to do the same thing last year.
Point is, don't overreact to Josh Jacobs. Buy low on him. Remember, submit your questions, okay? At the end of the episode, we are going to answer any more questions. Also, go to thegameday.com for any betting advice, betting promos. Also, if you're looking for fantasy, obviously we're talking fantasy. We got a ton of experts. Now, we're definitely not experts, although I did tell you Puka Nacua was going to be, the guy that you want to have. But go to thegameday.com. You can find any fantasy rankings, fantasy articles, waiver wires. Make sure to go check that out. We got a lot of great stuff on thegameday.com, so be sure to do that. Also, as a reminder, we have our total caps off, the 4 of us. Our cafeteria episode releasing tomorrow. We're going to do a lot of power rankings, rankings quarterbacks. So be sure to look out for that. And then on Thursday, we're back at it again, where we will be doing kind of more like buy lows and sell highs. I think a lot of people are going to overreact. We're not going to sit here and be like, start this guy or don't start this guy. Right. We're going to go through a lot more of, what to do with some high-level players, who are some guys you should target. So be sure to listen to that Thursday. We'll also have Scotty the King on Twitter coming in and talking with us. And then as a reminder, if we don't get your questions answered, you can follow both of us on Twitter, TGD Tabs, the Felipe Fontes on Twitter. Submit your questions. We'll be sure to answer there. We're on there every single day. But let's talk week 2 waiver wire right now, right? Okay. Let's go into the waiver wire, because I think on Tuesdays, everyone is looking into the waiver wire. I think a lot of people are going to overreact. Are there any? I have a list of people that I'm targeting, and I think it's a very similar to what a lot of people are saying. But what are some guys that you're looking at on the waiver wire being like, that's a priority for me, and that's not? Because obviously you have Fab, and then you have just overall standings being able to add. So let's start with Fab. Who are guys that you're saying I should actually spend a good amount of money of my Fab budget on this person or Fab on it? Free agency.
We're gonna cool. Can I be a week late on it because you were a week early? Maybe I'm on time.
Yeah,
late would be next week.
Yep.
I mean, Cooper Kupp out for the next few weeks, and I think like if you were hesitant on him before, obviously you saw just the target share. Even Tutu Atwell, good game. And so those like Stafford looked pretty good yesterday. The Rams are better than we thought.
Yep.
That Rams offense, buy some stock in it. Like get some of those guys. I think you, especially if you're short on receiver, if you went like kind of like running back early in the draft and stuff like that, then you're going to be looking at some of these receivers. Puka's a big one. I really like that. And I like Kendrick Bourne too. I know we talked about him.
Yep.
He was Mac's number one guy, and they played a good defense. They're going to play worse defenses going forward. Maybe that offense is a little bit better than we thought. And that's why I like him as well.
Puka's a big one as well. He had the most targets by a rookie in week 1 in NFL history. He's the only rookie wide receiver to have 10 receptions in week 1 during the PFF era, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. Puka's a guy at 6'2", 205, I think he is, maybe 210, that could, when Cooper Kupp comes back, be a guy that still has playing time, right? His built. And I think you look at the way they've done it over the last couple of years. They had Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson, even when Cooper Kupp was out, was not the guy. Then they draft Tutu Atwell. Tutu Atwell, too small, gets blown through the fucking wind. Still had a great game, and he's going to be on my waiver wire targets. But when it comes to free agency budgets, you want to only spend that capital if you expect them to be on your roster later in the year. Puka Nacua might be one of the only receivers on this list, at least within these first couple of weeks, because of what he can do, that I think could be a guy that later on is someone you want, especially knowing that hamstring injuries with Cooper Kupp could linger. So Puka Nacua is I agree, the priority ad. What?
Aaron Rodgers diagnosed with complete tear of Achilles tendon.
Oh, Lord.
Yikes.
Oh, Lord.
Fuck, dude.
Okay. Well, we knew that was going to happen.
We didn't.
No. We did.
We knew the jet was going to jet. Is that what you're?
No, we knew that the Achilles. We didn't
know the Achilles was going to be that bad.
Robert Saleh said it last night. They fear ruptured Achilles. The MRI is going to confirm it. But also, and I guess we'll sidebar quickly on this, a ruptured Achilles is the easiest thing to diagnose for any of these Twitter doctors because you see the calf regurgitate, and that always means a torn Achilles. And that's what happened. So, unfortunately, if you have any Jets guys, that's the worry.
So sorry.
But listen to the waiver wires, right? Because these are guys you could add. A few of my priority ads that I have, at least from the quarterback position, Brock Purdy and Jordan Love. Brock Purdy was 10th in fantasy points. Jordan Love put up 23 fantasy points, 3 touchdowns. Brock Purdy is a guy that didn't need to throw as much, obviously, because they were dominating. I'm not going to sit here and say Brock Purdy or Jordan Love is someone that, you should be starting over these guys that you probably drafted within those first 10 rounds. Like Deshaun might have been the lowest one. But I will say with Brock or Jordan Love, what you can get away with is a good amount of points. Let's say if you can get 17 to 23 on a given week, look to trade whoever you drafted as a quarterback, right? So, for example, if you have Jalen Hurts and you could pick up a Brock Purdy or Jordan Love, I would add them and put feelers out there for, is anyone looking for a quarterback in Jalen Hurts? Is anyone looking for a Josh Allen? Because at the end of the day, you can get away with, average quarterback performance in winning a fantasy championship. I won my fantasy league 2 years ago, I think it was, with Gardner fucking Minshew.
You can get away with it, but I think the difference is like when you have those guys, you mentioned 2 big names, Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, so much rushing upside. There could be a big difference between, those top 4 quarterbacks.
Oh no, I agree. Hold on, let me
5 through 10.
Let me clarify. If you're struggling in other positions, right?
Okay.
So like the easiest way I look at upgrading your roster is through your quarterback. That's why I'm saying that, because you could also get a Kyler Murray who could come back later in the year, who's on IR right now, and you can put him on your IR. So I'm not saying I want to trade Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, the Patrick Mahomes of the world, any of these guys. But what I am saying is the name value is astronomically high. And therefore, if you have a Jordan Love or a Brock Purdy, these guys who can perform week over week, you could get some really good return and maybe upgrade running backs, upgrade wide receivers, upgrade tight ends, which is super thin. So that's all I'm saying with the quarterbacks.
Agreed.
Those are 2 guys that I really like.
Agreed. Especially because you look at what total points, what is your team going to put out, right? So if you go down a little bit in quarterback, but that means you're improving your overall team, like your receivers, your flex play, adding a little bit more depth there, then it makes sense.
One of my favorite things to ever do in fantasy is to pull that type of move off, is to have a quarterback and then take one of my flex guys, right? Pair them 2 and go reach for the stars, because I think a lot of people are going to overreact to the top 4 quarterbacks, which would be Mahomes, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, right? Those from a name value perspective.
3 of those had bad games.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Mahomes finished all right. Obviously, probably not worried about him. But 3 of those guys, Hurts played a bad game.
Yep.
Josh Allen played a bad game. Lamar had a bad game. I think he had 6. Allen had 9. I don't know what Hurts had, but regardless, they all played pretty bad, and they're all going to bounce back. Maybe this isn't the week, but they ball out next week, and then you could get even more value. People overreact week after week.
See, I actually disagree because I think it's harder to trade guys who are coming off big weeks, like from this quarterback perspective, right? So like with Jalen Hurts having a bad fucking week, I think someone's going to know that you're probably overreacting, and I still think you can get some pretty fucking damn good value.
You're doing reverse psychology.
I'm doing reverse psychology. I'm
just doing psychology.
Exactly. I'm reversing it on you. But that's why I think a lot of people in fantasy trades, like they don't like making it because at the end of the day, you want to win the trade, right?
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to win the trade, in my opinion, is with reverse psychology. You got to be a salesman, so that's how I feel about it.
Sounds like you tricking yourself, bro.
Not at all. Let's go into running backs though. Obviously, let's start with your team, the Ravens.
My team,
your team. Justice Hill and Gus Edwards. Out of those 2 guys, which are going to be priority ads because J.K. Dobbins is out with an Achilles. Also, what the fuck is up with the injuries this year? Like
a lot
early. Which do you prefer either one of them? Do you want to add bold? Do you take a flyer?
Everything. I hate everything. Get rid of the Ravens.
Okay, so we'll delete the Ravens. 29, 31 other teams.
Yeah, I hate it, bro. Like last year, right? Last year I picked up Kenyon Drake. And like he had a couple weeks where he did really well. You never know that. Now, granted, they have a new offensive coordinator, so maybe they treat it differently. Now, maybe they do have a primary guy or whatever. But you can't rely on any one of those guys.
But that's what the Ravens do. They sign old fucking running backs and then have a good couple.
Mark Ingram,
yeah,
Justin Forsett.
That's what they do.
Year after year after year. So look. I mean, go get one of those guys. They're gonna get touches. They're gonna get carries. But I'm not signing someone knowing that I'm going to rely on them to go be that guy. Because you're not going to get that. J.K. Dobbins would have been that guy if he was healthy. I don't think they're going to replace him with one guy. I think it's going to be running back by committee. Even if one guy goes off one week, I don't think he goes off the next week. That's what we saw last year. And so it's just a frustrating situation. I feel bad for all J.K. managers.
Well,
I'm a J.K. manager.
Yeah, I was going to say, you feel bad for you. I feel bad for you. Well, I think also a lot of people are going to run to add Justice Hill and Gus Edwards.
They are.
I think it's worth adding to see. The other part to it is I would actually go and add a Kareem Hunt or a Leonard Fournette.
That could be picked
There's
up.
now 2 teams, specifically the Ravens and the Colts, that need running backs because Deion Jackson didn't look good. Evan Hull's hurt.
Yeah.
So now these are 2 teams, and one of which is supposed to be a playoff contender. So I think a lot of people are going to run to go add those Ravens running backs. If you don't get them, I wouldn't worry. I'm going to go add a Leonard Fournette and Kareem Hunt and maybe give it 2 weeks just to see what happens. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not expecting much, but I just want to see. I want to have them as a priority potentially. Other guys, Kenneth Gainwell. Obviously, I think he's the number 1 running back that is available on the wire. I don't have him available in any of my leagues, but Kenneth Gainwell was the lead back in Philadelphia, and he's actually in a better situation than Miles Sanders won last year. And I think that's like going under the radar because Miles Sanders was playing early downs. He wasn't the 3rd down back guy. They would bring in a Kenneth Gainwell, right? But now Kenneth Gainwell's playing all 3 downs. He's a guy that's catching, passes out of the backfield. He's getting early down rushes. He might be in the goal line. Like the utilization from Kenneth Gainwell is something that like we haven't seen with Miles Sanders. Could be the biggest steal. So if it comes to fab, Kenneth Gainwell might be someone worth spending on. I wouldn't be like, I'm spending 35 of my free agency budget on him and then expecting him to be the guy because there's still 4 other running backs there.
Well, what do you make of that situation though?
What I make of the Eagles situation is that I might get the highest, or let me rephrase, the most I can expect from them is a flex player. Now, Kenneth Gainwell could be a low end RB2 and he's someone that you could start, but that's not going to happen until later in the year. Now, you might get week over week, but it wouldn't shock me if Kenneth Gainwell now ends up being the guy that doesn't have the most amount of points, and then somehow Rashad Penny has a fucking week, or a DeAndre Swift has a week, right? So I'm not overreacting to Kenneth Gainwell. That's why I said, like, you have to keep in mind, if I'm spending money on people, I want to spend money on someone that I think is going to last the whole season. I'm not just spending to drop them in 3 weeks. So Kenneth Gainwell, definitely worth an ad, but I wouldn't sit there and be like, I'm starting him next week over a fucking Javonte Williams or something, right?
So what about DeAndre Swift getting 2 touches this past week?
Worries me. But I also then I look at that and I'm like, should I trade for DeAndre Swift because his value could be so fucking low?
But according to your psychology, you do the opposite.
Well, I do the opposite with quarterbacks.
You
do the opposite with high-end guys.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying if like a Jalen Hurts goes down, if Jalen Hurts has a bad fucking game, everyone knows Jalen Hurts is still Jalen Hurts. So me trying to trade Jalen Hurts, that person now thinks he's getting good value out of him. Well, I know exactly what I'm doing. But if Jalen Hurts goes off for 40, me trying to trade him, they're like, you're going to overvalue him. Some other guys, Josh Kelly, I'm sorry for making you drop him. Austin Eckler's battling an ankle injury. Yeah. So he ran for 91 yards and 16 carries.
He had a game.
I don't think he has standalone value, but with Eckler hurt, he is a handcuff that you want. You could start him easily as a low-end RB2 with him out, with a lot of upside, actually, because, I think they had like 30 carries in total. They ran the ball between him and Eckler. So that's someone I love. Roshan Johnson's my last one. And obviously, we talked about Kyren Williams earlier. Definitely add Kyren Williams. But Roshan Johnson's the last one. I don't think Roshan Johnson is going to be a priority add in some of these leagues, maybe in deeper ones. But Roshan Johnson, he was like the highest fantasy scorer. And granted, they were getting blown out. So someone might be like, I'm not in on it. He was the only guy there that had a consistent role, and that was the third down back. So I think he led them in targets. I think he also led them in receptions. Roshan Johnson, add him, could be the guy. Keep in mind, Khalil Herbert was drafted under an old regime, and now Roshan Johnson, part of this new regime with Ryan Poles. So that's my last priority on the running backs.
Shout out Texas, man.
Shout out Texas. And last but not least, with wide receivers, I'm curious to know your thoughts. I got Puka on there. I got Tutu Atwell. I prefer Puka way more. Then I look at a Jonathan Mingo, Jaden Reed, Rashad Bateman, Rashee Rice, Zay Jones. All guys that should have been already picked up and are probably not available. Now, none of those guys, besides, I would say, a Rashee Rice or a Zay Jones, obviously Puka and Tutu Atwell, but those last few guys, had an amazing day. So these are guys that could still be available, but we're seeing the usage, the utilization, the target share, the route participation, all those things.
Route participation.
I mean, I'm spinning right now.
You are. I mean,
so, those are decent ads.
Mitchell Rashee Rice, shout out Dallas.
Shout out Texas.
And Texas and, and everything in between. But I guess, Travis Kelce is going to come back, so he's going to be that guy. But nobody really stood out. And Rashee Rice obviously had the best day out of any Chiefs targets. I wonder if he's only going to get better. That was the first game. Just kind of like we said with the other guys, Zay Flowers and all that. Rashee might be that guy. I don't know. Yeah. But these guys are worth at least taking a shot on. You're probably not going to start them this upcoming week. But you might eventually, especially like with injuries, you never know about that. One guy that's on at least on this waiver here in one of my home leagues that I auto drafted on RIP, Curtis Samuel. And Curtis Samuel had a pretty good game this past week. He got targeted 5 times, which is nice. You got to carry, they utilize him in different ways, kind of like DJ Moore. But I think that's a guy to keep an eye on. Last year, he was a flex, many weeks. He was flex viable for a lot of weeks, a lot of games. And so that's just a guy potentially, you don't know what that Washington offense, they were weird yesterday or Sunday against Arizona. They could play better. We expect them to play better. Sam Howell, we don't know if that offense overperforms, and Curtis Samuel could be a guy that it's probably worth going after.
I like it. Before we jump in and wrap up and do a rapid fire of last minute questions, tight ends. Obviously, it's a fucking shit show over there, right? You got Kelsey, Mark Andrews, Darren Waller, who played hurt. There's a lot of injuries, so you might need to stack up on tight ends on the bench. I got literally 2 fucking rookies on my bench with Tyler Higbee, just because I think the tight end position is such a lawless land. 2 guys, I've been saying Luke Musgrave, wasn't the sexiest game, but got targets. The other is Sam Laporta, had a fucking good game.
Shout out rookie tight ends.
Shout out rookie tight ends.
They had a good week 1.
Yeah. Now let's just answer a few questions, and then we'll wrap up. Do I pick up Hunter Henry or Hayden Hurst to replace a tight end?
I mean, it depends who you're replacing.
Yeah. I think I go Hayden Hurst.
Oh, it's one or the other.
Yeah. Do I pick up Hunter Henry or Hayden Hurst to replace a tight end? I go Hayden Hurst just because I don't know what to make of that entire skill position in New England. I don't want to get bought. I don't want to buy into Hunter Henry as much. Hayden Hurst is a guy that looked pretty good in Carolina. So I would go Hayden Hurst personally.
Yeah, I mean, the Panthers just look fucking terrible.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation. I mean, maybe there's another guy there, but yeah, I'd probably rock with you too, Hayden Hurst. It just feels like a security blanket, and maybe he pans out.
Yep. And then last but not least, do you think Tutu Atwell is good next week?
Against who?
I don't know. Let's find out who the Rams are
I
playing.
got it. Let me
I think Tutu Atwell is worth, I wouldn't start him. San Fran. Could be a shootout. Tough defense. I'm not starting him yet. The only person I'd start is probably Puka Nacua if you need to. but I'm still stashing both of them. I need to see it, right? I'm not going to overreact to week 1. There were a lot of good things that we saw from Puka. So Puka would be the only one. I'm not going to start Tutu Atwell just yet over some guys. And then I think that'll kind of wrap up the fantasy episode. Remember,
yeah, man,
we're going to do this again Thursday. We have Scotty the King, Twitter legend.
Hell yeah.
Coming in, and we're going to do some buy lows, sell highs. That's going to be the whole episode, right? It's people to target, people to sell. Also, make sure to go to thegameday.com for all your fantasy advice, fantasy rankings, waiver wires, any other articles you want on fantasy. Make sure to go to thegameday.com. You're going to find it all. And then again, we're going to be recording our cafeteria episode. So that'll come out tomorrow, I believe at 9 a.m., maybe earlier.
Yeah, earlier.
4 a.m. And then Thursday. And then Friday, we have our predictions episode. So caps off. You got a Monday through Friday slate of content coming at you. So be sure to tune in. And then also Sunday, our watch-alongs we do, which is a lot of fun. Content, man. There's so much content. So we'll do a Sunday watch-along during the games if you're into that. And we just love to fuck around and talk shit. We do a pregame show. And then I forgot to mention Thursday night. Before Thursday Night Football, we're going to do a little bit of a TikTok live. So talk some football. But
oh, yeah, man. Hang around with us.
Hey, where can I find you on Twitter to talk to you?
The Felipe Fontes. You can find me there anywhere.
Yeah.
Same handle.
And then TGD Tabs on Twitter. Come follow both of us. Ask any of your fantasy questions. You're going to find anything. So be sure to ask us there. We could probably answer it a lot better and more in depth.
Yo, and if you like these fantasy episodes, make sure to leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you use. You're an Apple guy. I'm a Spotify guy. Yeah. We have a lot more ratings on Spotify than Apple.
So we got to balance it out.
We got to balance it out. Well, go give us a rating, and we're gonna get better.
Yep. For that. All right. Well, remember, we'll see you tomorrow. And hey, good luck. Good luck with your waiver wires tonight. Bye.
Bye.